They smell like baked chicken. I just ate a Lifesaver as fast as possible so that it would be gone before the show started. And Fletcher and I just looked at a photo of a pug in a pepperoni pizza Speedo. How are you doing on your Monday night, Fletcher?
Better now. Better now.
That's Fletcher Page. I'm Jeff Greer. This is Double Coverage. There will not be any photos of pugs in pepperoni pizza Speedos going forward, but I can promise you we'll have some relative, like, half the amount of fun as that pug did in his life.
That pug looked like he was having a pretty chill time.
He was very much enjoying the beach, I believe, on the West Coast. You're watching us on Facebook Live, which you know, which is why we both have our computers up. Fletcher is looking at Ken Pomeroy's metrics. I am watching us actually on this screen here. And the best reason for me to do that, and for Fletcher to sometimes do that, is if you want to leave us some comments here on the thread, we'll try to get to your comments or questions through the show. But Fletcher, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to solve all of the NCAA's problems in a 2-minute segment. But before we get to that, we're going to talk a little bit about the Cards and Cats. First and foremost, for your purposes, why are the Wildcats, why is Kentucky playing so much better? They've won 3 in a row, up to 20-9, 9-7 in the SEC.
Right, yeah. Kentucky had lost 4 in a row. And a couple things happened after that 4-game losing streak. There was a players-only meeting, which I know that's sort of
the famous players-only meeting.
That's the cliche, let's get it together move. But there was a players-only meeting. They kind of hashed out some things on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, but that coincided with John Calipari meeting with each player and kind of better defining each player's role.
Okay.
So I think those two things helped. But quite frankly, I think that Jared Vanderbilt returning in January sort of threw the team off a little bit with their rotations. Also, Quade Green left for an injury and came back. So things kind of got a little jumbled up in January, early February. I think that Jared Vanderbilt has really helped this team. He's starting to hit his peak. He played 27 minutes against Missouri, and there's a lineup that's got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Quade Green, Kevin Knox, P.J. Washington, and Jared Vanderbilt. That lineup is playing increasing possessions, and it has been super successful, both in crashing the boards, rebounding, and also scoring more. I think John Calipari put it best. He said, you can't score 60 points in March and win games. Looking at you, Virginia. And that's where Kentucky was at.
You can, you just have to play fewer possessions.
That's right. So Kentucky was scoring, in the low 60s. Now the past 3 games they've reached 80 points or more in each of those past 3 wins. So they have a much better look offensively.
Yeah, it helps when you score 85.5 points per game over 3 games. I think that I just did the math in my head while you're talking. 81, 87, and 87 in their last 3 against 3 teams that are pushing in one way, shape, or form, either probably already in the tournament or pushing to get into the tournament. So finishing up, though, 2 games that you would think that they should win. Florida hasn't been all that great, as good as we thought they would be. But still, I mean, a good team. But what do you think has to happen in the 2 games for Kentucky to finish on a 5-game winning streak going into the conference tournament?
Well, I think Ole Miss that's pretty much a win at Rupp.
Should be.
Florida has really been disappointing. Those Texas A&M and Florida
I had them as a top 10 team.
Right, and then they've dealt with some injuries.
Yeah.
But that is on the road, so that'll be difficult. I just noticed that my collar is kind of over here. I look like I'm in Boogie Nights or something.
I wasn't going to say anything because I was enjoying it, but.
But if Kentucky's able to finish with 2 wins, then they go to St. Louis. They'll get that bye. They'll play 3 games there potentially. If they could string together a run to the SEC championship, potentially win that, maybe they move up to the 4 line. I don't think they'll get a 3 seed, but they could push for it, at least make it difficult on the selection committee to think about it. I don't think that they can get that far, but a 4 seed after where they were just 12 days ago after a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, or people were wondering if they were a bubble team, Yeah,
and I've been told that their coaching staff actually was a little worried about when you looked at it.
They should have been.
Right.
6-7 in the SEC.
Right. So they've certainly changed their perception, and they did that by changing the way they're actually playing.
So one thing that people should remember about the NCAA tournament and the selection process, you can't really hurt yourself in the conference tournaments unless you're a team that goes into it still needing a marquee win or a good win and you lose before you get that chance. But if you're a team like Kentucky or on a much different scale, Virginia or Duke, or teams that are obviously well into the tournament, you're playing basically with house money because
Right.
you go into it. I mean, if Kentucky were to beat a bunch of good teams 3 days in a row, that obviously could help them, but it's not going to make them drop any seeding if they lose in the first game of the conference.
Yeah,
tournament.
I think worst case now they're a 5 seed, and if they could play Tennessee or Auburn, the two teams ahead of them in terms of respect and seeding, and get
That can
wins
help
in those games, they could help them.
So let's talk about Louisville. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, Louisville got I cannot stress to you how monstrous and important Louisville's win at Virginia Tech was on Saturday. Not only did Louisville need that win just in terms of emotional stability and mental stability and just knowing that they could win a good game, but they needed it for the NCAA tournament purposes as well. As you saw, speaking of teams trending in the wrong direction, Louisville was also trending in the wrong direction. They lost 5 of 7, 6 of 9, and they were in a spot where they were kind of on the wrong side of the bubble, so to speak. They were included in, and who knows how accurate. I mean, we do know how accurate the bracketology is.
It's really good.
Some of it is better than others. But if you go to bracketmatrix.com, you can look at all the bracketologists and how they've done previous years. Louisville was on the wrong side of it, but a win at Virginia Tech gives them 3 really good wins. That's actually our top 8 at 8 tonight is the top wins of the season for everybody. We'll get to that in a little bit, top wins for Louisville and Kentucky. But the Virginia Tech win puts Louisville back on the right side of things for right now, and they have 2 more opportunities. If they beat Virginia on Thursday night, which I realize if you're a Louisville fan, the thought of that is like saying, if you ever see a leprechaun riding a rocket to a pot of gold over 3 rainbows, the odds seem pretty slim of that happening. But if they were to beat Virginia, there's no question that they'll be in the NCAA tournament. No question whatsoever. If they lose to them but beat NC State, I still think that should be enough to get them into the tournament. But one thing I will say before we get to our topic of the week, I went back and looked. Over the last 10 years in the ACC, and especially over the last 4 or 5 years, there is no guarantee. Every year, there is a team that had 10 wins in the conference that did not get into the tournament in the last couple of years. Now, granted, Louisville's strength of schedule should be enough to help them in that regard, but 10 wins is not the perfect marker, and neither is 9. And I know I have been guilty of saying that recently, and now I'm realizing that my research does not back that point up. Pretty,
I think they've got a better chance against
Pretty
Virginia
eye-catching.
than a leprechaun and a rocket ship.
I do too. That's probably fair, but it is.
Since it's a home game.
It is. Well, yeah, but it's just Virginia.
Right.
But see, I disagree with Kelly Griffith. Louisville. I don't think Louisville has to win the next 2. I think if they go 1-1, they should be in. If you go on computer numbers, if you go on the wins that they would have, if they won on the road against North Carolina State, that's 4 road Quadrant 1 wins, which are valuable and would be more than 16 other teams ahead of them.
Right. Well, and 2,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting to me where they'll be at in the ACC tournament. I know we don't need to speculate on their seeding yet. We can talk about that
Sure,
next
yeah.
Monday. But I agree with Kelly, just depending on how things shake out and what kind of wins are possible for them. Where's the ACC tournament this year?
Brooklyn.
Oh, good for you.
I know. I'm really excited
Yeah,
about it.
we'll see what they can do in Brooklyn too.
Yeah, should be. They have ample opportunity. That's the bottom line. So the big topic of the week is sort of a follow-up from Friday and really just the chaos of the weekend. Kentucky had some news that they had to deal with. What should the NCAA do about everything that has come out between Friday and Saturday with the NCAA, but more with the FBI and with the Yahoo and ESPN reports? Multiple schools now supposedly involved in all of this stuff. And there seems to be, Fletcher, an increasing idea that maybe the NCAA moves in the direction of you can't go after individual schools when there's so many. Do they just change rules and hit them with a financial penalty or something like that? What do you think the NCAA should try to do here in the next, I guess, year or two as these facts sort of trickle out?
We'd probably need a couple of shows to really dig in. I think the biggest thing from me covering it with Kentucky, and I'll say this as concisely as I can, Kevin Knox, Bam Adebayo, Nerlens Noel, those 3 players, it had nothing to do with Kentucky's coaches or the University of Kentucky. And I say that, and I know that all the Louisville fans are probably, I'm the Kentucky guy, but it's very difficult if you're a coach. And this happens in college football, too. This is not just in college basketball.
Oh, yeah, it's rampant.
Well, you've got all these talented players that are going to need representation professionally in a year or two, and in college football, 3 or 4 years. So you have agents who are in recruiting early. You have shoe reps in recruiting early. And I just think it's impossible for Bobby Petrino on the football side or John Calipari on the basketball side to really know if one of your players is taking a meal with an agent. So I think for the NCAA, and I think there's a strong push for this, obviously Jay Billis talks about it all the time, what some of these players were alleged to be doing with these agents is not against the law. They're not breaking any laws. They're just potentially breaking NCAA violations. And why shouldn't these guys be able to cash in on their market value, which is established by the fact that someone's willing to pay them this amount of money? So for me, I think ethically, I don't feel that it's that much of a compromise if someone wants to take some money from an agent. Obviously, it compromises their eligibility, which hurts the school. So I think it's a conversation that needs to be had in terms of players being able to make money off of their market value.
Well, I think the first thing that the NCAA needs to do is change its leadership, because clearly they have not handled any of this stuff well in the last, 5 or 6 years. The NCAA especially has really just been watching on the sidelines as things have happened, and they've mismanaged a bunch of stuff. And it's, I think, time for a change with their leadership. I agree with you. I think that, if you talk to, there's a large swath of people who really do firmly, strongly believe that a scholarship and room and board and playing at this top level and getting all of the gear that comes with playing for a Nike school or an Adidas school or an Under Armour school is more than enough for a college athlete. But when you factor in how much money is made off of their likeness, off of their jerseys, off of the jerseys that they make famous, there's got to be some sort of way that you can start having conversations with agents while you're still in college. It gives you the best chance of being informed. I don't think there would be a penalty if a musician started talking to an agent or a manager in college. I don't see why that would be a problem. So why is it a problem with athletics? I don't think you can cap how much they make, but I think that you can say, look, kind of like the Olympic model, go get a sponsorship if you want. If you get autograph money, by all means. But there's got to be a way that you can police it without kind of impeding what these kids are doing. Because one thing, and I know that people will kind of roll their eyes at this, but I actually thought it was a pretty good idea, was when Rick Pitino was still coaching at Louisville, he did suggest something that I thought was interesting, was create some sort of account where they put all of the money that they're earning from endorsements or autograph signings or appearances or whatever into like an account that has interest on it, and allow them to withdraw from it, and create an opportunity where, one, you're teaching them how to handle their money, but two, you're allowing them to make money off of them being who they are.
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
It could be interesting.
But to your point about what is actually going to happen with what we've learned, we don't know if the FBI is going to make these documents available to the NCAA. And then we don't know what the NCAA has the capability of even doing if this many schools are implicated.
I know.
I don't know how they. Obviously, the schools are on the front lines of that too. They would have to do a lot of the police work themselves, which they've already started doing. We had Kentucky conduct a very quick internal review of Kevin Knox and clear him to play for the Missouri game, which he played really well in. So
right before we came on, actually, ESPN reported that at Michigan State, they did discover that Miles Bridges' family had some sort of meal or meeting with an agent last year when he was a freshman, unbeknownst to him. I mean, this is what they said, so this is their statement or explanation of it, and they just had to repay the money that was supposedly involved in the meal. I think it was like $40 or something.
So they just declared him ineligible, rectified the amount, and then reinstated
applied for
him.
reinstatement and got it.
So good for Miles.
We'll see if that is a permanent solution for some of the smaller ones. That would be probably similar to the Kevin Knox case, because it's not very much money, right? It was like $50 with him, or
no, we don't know if he even had to
Well,
be.
no, I know that, but wasn't it listed on the ledger? It was listed as like $40 or $60.
For Knox. Knox actually wasn't in the. He's just
Where
his
was
name.
It was just his name?
We don't even
See,
know.
there you go.
He's a potential, maybe he was a potential target of this
Oh my
agency.
gosh. Okay, yeah. Well, that's a whole other
So-
discussion about whether or not that name should have been on the included in the report. But anyway, we'll get into that another time. Let's go to the tweet of the week, and that is Louisville women's basketball has won the first ACC championship in program history. That's
awesome.
That's incredible. For them, I mean, that's quite an achievement, considering that Notre Dame and some of the other programs that are in the conference, pretty exciting for them. I think the ACC tournament starts this week.
I think the best thing that could have happened to them was for them to go up to UConn and have things kind of go the way it did, because they get a chance for a rematch. That's
Low motivation?
right. That's me.
I don't buy that at all.
Speaking in
whatsoever.
platitudes.
I don't buy that at
No,
all.
I'm trying to be positive here.
Before we get to the top 8 at 8, we'll answer Christian Neal's question. Who does U of L recruit after the permanent head coach is hired after the season? That is a nebulous question, my friend.
A lot of what ifs.
A lot of what ifs. Here's what I'll tell you. Whoever they hire is going to have to fill probably like 4 or 5, maybe 6 spots on the roster. Graduate transfers, junior college route, and some leftover kids who back off of their signings or get releases or don't back off commitments because the coach that they wanted to play for is no longer there.
You know, like
Pretty straightforward. You are really concerned about that.
I don't think it's an opportunity. I know that this is not ideal. Obviously, you want 5-star recruits the best possible. But a kid like Tavion Hollingsworth at Western Kentucky,
Yeah.
he's awesome. He's an in-state
Yep.
kid. Kentucky and Louisville didn't really pursue him as hard as Western did.
Yeah.
Maybe Louisville ends up with a couple in-state kids and things aren't so bad.
Well,
I know, again, that's not ideal that
Yeah.
they aren't recruiting at the highest level. But
sure, but it depends on who they hire. So if it's David Padgett, I would I would think that a lot of the guys on the current team would stay.
Yeah.
Which would give them pretty much a starting lineup and a couple of key guys off the bench, and then you could do something like that. Maybe go get 1 or 2 graduate transfer guards to help them, and maybe probably would need help in all areas of the team. You could do that. If it's a new coach, my guess would be that more guys would leave just because that's usually what happened. I'm not operating on some like inside knowledge that would happen. But they also might have kids that want to get releases from whatever school they were at to come play at Louisville. So we'll talk more about that coming up here in the next month. We should have more answers, you would think, in the next month. So let's do it. Top 8 at 8. It's the best part of the night. Let's get it. There's our boy Steve-O in there.
I like
Stevie
Steve.
Jones. I love Steve.
Steve has a great Facebook status updates. I hate that you guys don't get to see Steve Jones in the newspaper every day.
He was very excited the other day that there was a guy named Taco Steve referenced in a sports story. Anyway, the top 8 at 8. Every week we rank 8 things that are awesome, and in this case, 8 things that are sort of relevant to college basketball as Fletcher tries to log into the guest wireless over here.
We're winging it for the rest of the show.
We are winging it for the rest of the show. So this week we are doing NCAA tournament themed, basically. The top 8 wins for Louisville and Kentucky. Obviously I'll handle Louisville. Fletcher will handle Kentucky. We did them in order. And I went first. So I will pick Louisville over Memphis. Now Memphis, as you probably know, has not had the greatest season. But they did just slide back into the top 100 in the RPI, which gives Louisville a little bit of a nice non-conference win on a neutral floor. It's not a great win. They don't have any great non-conference wins, but that is their best non-conference win on a neutral site away from home. That helps them a little bit. And if you're a Louisville fan, you want Memphis to keep on winning.
For Kentucky, get things started off with their recent win at Arkansas. The Razorbacks are clearly in the NCAA tournament. They're not bad. Not great, not bad.
I thought the way they started, I thought they might win that game.
Arkansas starts. Kentucky spots them 11 points,
Yeah.
and they're up double digits through the first part of the first half, and you're thinking, okay, well, this is the Kentucky team we thought we might see on the road. And by the end of it, Kentucky had piled up 87 points, which was drastically higher than their average. And they had 18 offensive rebounds. They held Arkansas to just 1 3-pointer in the second half. Really impressive. I believe they outscored Arkansas by 16 down the stretch. Really break that game open and won it convincingly. That kind of really lets you, that win sort of made you feel like maybe they have, quote unquote, flipped the switch.
Yeah.
Turn the corner.
There you go.
I didn't have a third one of those cliches, so let's move on.
Well, earlier in the season, I thought that this next win for Louisville was the sign of them turning the corner when they went up to Notre Dame, which had been struggling, which really had struggled for a lot of the season without Bonzie Colson. I mean, preseason player of the year in the ACC. When he goes down with an injury, that's a problem. They did lose 7 in a row. They have since kind of righted the ship, but I think they're 6-10 in the conference right now, or something close to that, which is a problem for their NCAA tournament hopes. They're going to need to make some noise in the ACC tournament, probably, and really start winning some games. But Bonzie Colson is expected back for the ACC tournament, so Louisville does not want to play them. When they have Bonzie, they're pretty good. But Louisville did win at Notre Dame. That's a big win for them.
And next for Kentucky, I've got their win against Louisville in late December. So the SEC has certainly been a better conference this year. It's raised its profile. It's going to probably get a record number of teams in. That's not been good for Kentucky because it's led to 7 losses in the conference. But also the teams that could have helped them in terms of wins, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, they lost to each of those teams.
Right.
They also lost to Missouri. So they lost to Texas A&M. So they didn't really capitalize on some of the goodness of the SEC. They just had to slog through some of the losing. That's why Kentucky fans the smart ones, have been pulling for Louisville to win some of these games down the stretch, raise their profile. The Cardinals sit, I think, number 33 on KenPom right now.
Yeah.
That's good for Kentucky because that's technically like their second or one of their top 4 wins.
Yeah. Definitely their second best non-conference
Certainly,
win, right?
Certainly.
We'll get to their top one here in a moment. All of these for Louisville now are in conference. Really kind of the middle is beating up the middle in the ACC. Louisville went on the road, fell behind by 17 points in the first half in Tallahassee at Florida State, but they came back and won, and that ended up being a really important win for them because they lost to Florida State at home, which humorously enough, the way the NCAA tournament selection process has been changed a little bit, Louisville's win at Florida State is more valuable than a win against them would have been at home. So it's almost better for them to have lost at home to Florida State than to have lost to them in Tallahassee. Crazy.
Anyway. Quadrants.
Crazy quadrants. Anyway, what's next for you?
Here's a conference win Kentucky did get early before they went through some struggles against Texas A&M. They won by 1 point at Rupp Arena. That's the game that at the buzzer, Texas A&M had the ball and a chance to win. And Wendy Gabriel might have had a little pass interference on Tyler Davis. Was not called.
I forgot about that.
Texas A&M has been one of the most disappointing teams in the country. We're talking about a top 5 team pre-Christmas. They're now 18-11. They have a losing record in the conference, 7-9. But they're still number 30 on KenPom. They're still going to get in the tournament. And they've got a lot of talent. I mean, that's a team, like, if you get matched up against the Texas A&M, and they got Robert Williams and, Tyler Davis, that's a big front line. So
they need to probably get to – don't you think they need to get –
well, they're playing Georgia. That'll be a win. And then
they got to beat Alabama.
They need to beat
really
Alabama.
Be comfortable. I know their computer numbers are good, but you show up 8-10 in your conference. That's not big.
I think that they'll finish with 2 wins, and if they don't, they'll do what they need to do in St. Louis.
Talented roster. Too talented to be 7-9 in the SEC.
They've won 1 of their last 4 games, though, so now I should probably backtrack out the door.
Hey, they beat Kentucky at home, and Auburn. Anyway, okay, last one for me, and then obviously the biggest one of the season for any team in the tri-state area, or the Indiana-Kentuckiana combo. Louisville won at Virginia Tech on Saturday. Probably, well, it was 75-68 was the score this past weekend, which is the one I was referring to, but they played each other twice, so I apologize to Jeff, our graphics guy, for not clarifying which one I was thinking about. But Louisville did win this weekend, 75-68 at Virginia Tech. That gave them their 3rd road win in the ACC against a Quadrant 1 opponent. It sounds ridiculously dorky, but it is a win that probably puts Louisville in the NCAA tournament, but it's kind of dicey right now. They can't guarantee a spot, but it definitely puts them on the right path. So a big win for Louisville. And as you've heard so many times now, the latest game this late in the season feels like the most important game as we get closer to the tournament.
You say Quad 1 or Q1?
I like Quad 1. That's a cool nickname.
We'll roll with that. All right, best win of the season.
All right.
Yeah, pretty simple here. West Virginia, at West Virginia for Kentucky. They trailed by 17 in the first half, and again, you're starting to think, okay, well, this is who this Kentucky team is. They were able to completely reverse their fortunes in the second half, played probably their best 20 minutes of the season in Morgantown, which was really loud.
Yeah, that place gets up for their games.
In the first half, not so loud in the second half.
Yeah.
And West Virginia has slid a little bit. Obviously, playing in the Big 12 will do that.
Yep.
But they're still number 12 on KenPom. That easily makes it Kentucky's most respected win.
There you go. Top 88.
You know, it's not a very prestigious list of wins, to be honest.
It has not been the best season for the two schools in terms of because last year they both played. Kentucky always plays a pretty tough non-conference schedule. Louisville played one of the toughest in the country and got some wins that really counted for them, including Kentucky. But yeah, this year the teams have just really not come up with the big dubs.
We'll see. They'll get in. Maybe if they get into the tournament, which I think Louisville will, they'll have their opportunity to win, to gain wins that you respect, Jeff.
All right, we'll end on this. Kelly Griffith. Lots of questions tonight, Kelly. I like it. Will Tom Izzo survive the harassment scandal and now the Miles Bridges payments?
It's been
That is a $1 million question.
It's been a bad calendar year, 2018 has not been good for Tom Izzo.
No, it has not. I kind of think he will.
I think he'll survive.
But it won't. It's not going to be.
But you know what?
easy.
Hopefully, it will change some of the ways that he was applying things in the past, especially with the former thing that was mentioned. The latter thing, I don't know what he could do with Miles Bridges. I don't know how he could have stopped that. These agents.
Yeah, they have ways of going around behind people and getting through coaches and stuff.
But the way that he handled the harassment issues didn't handle that well at all.
I think he might say that himself.
I think so.
He seems like the type of guy who would then come back and be like, you know what, I didn't handle that very well. He revised his statement the one time that he had the one statement.
The questions, though. I like the questions.
Yeah, it's good to have some questions for the show, especially now. There's so many questions that people have about stuff going on in college sports. Any parting thoughts, Fletcher?
We just need bracketmatrix.com to be a sponsor. We've got an open slot. We're ready for you guys.
We've been waiting.
We've been
waiting.
We've been
in the meantime,
pumping your site.
In the meantime, I'm sponsored by Lifesavers.
Nice.
Sugar rings. See you later, everybody.